Hey, hockey fans, welcome to the 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Gino Retta. You know, I've spent decades, better than 4 decades, working the game of hockey. Fortunate enough to meet some of the great legends of the game, watch them come into the game, shine, and now they've moved on to life after the game. The 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast gives us an opportunity to catch up, tell some great stories, relive some great memories, and hear what these guys are up to today. Today's NHL legend, a Stanley Cup champion, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, World Cup gold medalist, World Junior gold medalist on one of the greatest World Junior teams of all time. Top 100 scorers of all time in NHL history, Ryan Getzlaf. Ryan, great to catch up with you, my friend. I'm looking forward to catching up to what you've been doing over the last 12 months.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Listen, when I think of where you were just 12 months ago, like, this is not a big post-retirement story. Remember when this time last year, man, you were still playing. You were still like, I think at this point you hadn't even really decided what you were going to do, right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird looking back on it now. I mean, obviously last year was kind of a whirlwind. There was always kind of something going on depending on what game it was. And obviously the second half of the season was almost dedicated to me, which was a little uncomfortable, but
the farewell
really got
tour.
to enjoy
Come on,
it.
man.
Yeah,
Gifts.
I got to enjoy
gifts.
it though. That's for sure.
Was that an important thing for you to kind of let people know? I'll talk about the emotion of the actual retirement announcement, because that was crazy with what that went on. But was that important to you to kind of let people know, don't call my agent. I'm not looking for an extension. I'm not looking. I just want to get a good opportunity to say goodbye. Why was that important to you?
I think most of that weighed into the fact that I had been able to play somewhere my whole career. I got to be in Anaheim the whole time. I wasn't looking for the big farewell tour. I know it kind of turned out a little bit that way at the end. Obviously, playing LA late was good. LA was a building that I definitely wanted to, wanted to finish out the end of the year at. Had a lot of history in that building, and then to be able to go home and finish my career at home with our fans, it couldn't have been more special that night. The way the fans turned out and stuff in a season that wasn't that great.
What's it like now? I mean, you've had a chance. I mean, are you even starting to get used to the adjustment? Like, I mean, imagine a few months ago at the start of this, or even in the summer, like from the time you can remember, from the time you were 5 or 6 years old, you're spending the summer to get ready for hockey in the fall. You're, trying to get in shape or working on something you want to do. All of a sudden you're looking ahead to this fall and there wasn't any of that. What was that like for you?
Well, it was great not having to get back in shape.
But was it weird though to just say,
that was always a grind.
I could keep eating, let's keep having barbecues, I'm good?
Yeah, that was the problem we did. So no, it was really weird. I remember, I think it was the beginning of July, things really hit, where my body was so used to just getting ready to go. It was kind of like, hey, what are we doing? Why aren't we going to the rink? And so that part of it was a little bit uncomfortable for a couple of weeks, I remember. And then just the overall preparation, that getting back into that routine was a little bit weird to get started on a different routine and the way things were going to be this year.
I know it could be dangerous though, because now all of a sudden you got all this extra free time, especially for, tell our audience about the fact you've got a bit of a weakness thanks to your old teammate Timo Solani when it comes to cars.
I do have a weakness with cars, that's for sure.
What's going on with that?
A little bit. Well, I definitely have to sell before I buy now. When I'm buying cars and doing stuff, that's not quite as extravagant anymore.
What's your favorite car that you've got that you can't part ways with?
I don't really have an emotional attachment to cars. That's my bigger problem, I think. Is that right now I got a big F-250 truck, and I just got the new Hummer EV.
Oh, so see, the Regina boy. It's still in your blood. You've been in Anaheim.
Yeah, I've been loving it. Yeah.
Do you ever get home? Have you been able to get home a little more often now?
Not a ton. I mean, obviously, we don't get home a whole lot in the winter time. No. I am coming to Regina in April here. I got a few trips back there, do a couple speaking engagements and stuff. So it'll be good to see family and friends for that. But my family comes here. I mean, that's I have 4 kids. I have 4 kids in school and all the other stuff. So it's a lot easier for them to come down here, and trust me, they want to come down here during the winter months.
Now you're getting some options of stuff to do. I heard that your wife was being approached about the Real Housewives of Orange County.
Yeah, that was actually a couple years ago, but
I know, but I thought now that you got the free time, maybe you'll say yes.
Yeah, because now that I'm done, I want to get divorced. That's not in the cards for our family. We don't love that stuff. We don't love the spotlight a whole lot. My wife did that Hockey Wives show once, and that was enough for us.
That's hilarious. We're in conversation with Stanley Cup champion, two-time Olympic gold medalist Ryan Getzlaf. This is the 7-11 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Gino Reda. Ryan, you kind of alluded to this, and I think it's really important that we talk about this. How much you loved Anaheim, and you're still living there now. I mean, it's so rare to see a guy spend his entire career with one organization. You did it, and you did it extensively, and you did it successfully. I remember the trade deadline was a deadline 2021 where you came really, really close to saying yes, because you had a full no move, obviously. What was that like when you were finding about, I mean, you weren't going to win another cup with Anaheim at this stage where the organization was. How tempting was it? How close did you come to say, yeah, move me? And how did you go about making that call?
Yeah, it was that was tough. That was, I can honestly say that was the only trade deadline that I ever lost sleep over. Every other year it wasn't really a question. Obviously I had a full no move for most of my career. So I was in control, but at no point did I ever, throughout that think about it. It was always about how can I get Anaheim back to the Stanley Cup. That was the whole time. And then I think that year, it was a couple years ago. It was the COVID season. It was kind of a weird year overall. Everything was kind of in limbo. And so I think that was the only real reason that I kind of thought about it. I basically had told Bob that Vegas was the only team that I would go to. It was close. My family wouldn't have to move for the second half of the year, that kind of stuff, all weighed into it. And then, it was a whirlwind. The day before, me and Bob talked a lot. He talked to Vegas. They had kind of a deal into place. There was one piece that wasn't working that Bob was trying to get. And, ultimately I said to Bob that, if the deal makes sense for the team, you have to do it. It was going to make their team better, faster, all that stuff. Me and my wife were up basically all night long. I was going to say I woke up at 2 a.m., but I was awake still. And I text Bob and I just said, I don't think I can do it. And the funny thing is he texted me back and was like, I don't think I can either. And then, so ultimately we called it off and stayed where I was. And I was very grateful to have a GM that was able to talk to me like that and really respect the way that, I'd spent my career here.
It's funny, Gats, because when I talk to obviously a lot of players for a lot of years now, because I'm old, to see the look on your face as you're talking about Bob and you're talking about Anaheim and the city and stuff, I can really feel how tough that must have been for you. Because, I mean, that became your life, right? I mean, sometimes we think of a guy as a pro athlete, guy or woman as a pro athlete, and you're like, yeah, I'm making a great living out of it and taking care of my family with it, but you forget about the personal aspect of it, the attachment you have of an area, right? An area, an organization, that commitment level, and that really comes across in the way you're talking. So do you still really feel that?
Yeah, it's weird. I just have always been, I think in my whole, younger life, the way I was brought up, the way I went through junior, I always kind of felt, an attachment to the organization. When I came to Anaheim, when I finally made the team here was the same year that Henry and Susan took over. And so ultimately we've been together the whole time. And so I felt like I grew with the organization. I helped push the organization. They were loyal to me. I was loyal to them. We always kind of had that ability or that respect for each other, which has been great. And so I think that's always been where my heart is. I'd never known anything else. When I was in Calgary in junior, I watched players come and go a little bit, all that stuff, but I stayed in the same place the whole time and always felt that loyalty.
I got to ask you about this because this one kind of has always confused me a little bit. I love Corey Perry. Corey Perry's a great guy, but his personality is so much different than yours. Like when I look at guys and think which guys would get along together, I mean, obviously it worked for you guys and fantastic. This is great, but I never would have put the two of you guys together. Just for background, so our audience knows this. You guys were literally born 6 days apart. You got drafted 19th overall in 2003. Corey Perry got drafted right behind you in the draft. And it was kind of like you didn't play junior together. You played against each other at times. But it was weird, a weird kind of symmetry. Is there a way to explain your relationship with Corey Perry? Like, help me to understand this.
Opposites attract, I guess. It is a weird the way it worked out, because you're right. Our personalities are very different, but we've also complemented each other really well in that aspect. Pears is a very reserved person until you meet him. Not outspoken, doesn't love interviews, any of that stuff. And was always kind of underappreciated. I think, like most of his career, he's always kind of underappreciated on.
I don't know, man. I think we thought he was a pretty special player.
Well, I think growing up, though, he was always kind of the underdog, I think, because he didn't skate very well.
Fair.
There's certain aspects of his game that he doesn't do very well as far as standing out. And so that enabled me to take the brunt of that stuff and him to kind of do his thing. And, even when we came to our first camp, they had us together. They had a vision, obviously, for us to play together. But his first camp, Pears came in, he was only 160 pounds or something, and kind of the wind blew and he fell over. And, and we all went back to junior, and, he had a big year development-wise, everything. And we came back to camp with a different attitude and expectations of ourselves in general.
And it wasn't. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
It wasn't quick either, right? You talked about the fact you both did go back to junior. Then you both went back to the American Hockey League. You played in the Ducks. Neither one of you made the step immediately. So was that a good bonding thing for you guys?
Well, I think that's just it. Like we kind of went through everything together. So you were forced to be, forced into a friendship, so to speak. But sometimes you get forced into that and you just butt heads. And it butt heads, exactly. But it worked, because I think that, I was able to talk and be myself. He's a little bit shyer until you get him opened up. And so it was almost like a shield for each other. And to go through, I think that the going to the minors thing was a big part, because that's a tough thing for any player, especially a young player that thinks that they should be on the team. We felt like we were contributing in the NHL, and then all of a sudden you get set down, and it's kind of devastating. But you go down together, had the success we did in the minors, that enabled the team to pull us back up together, and the rest is history kind of from there.
Yeah, and quick history too. You guys got put on the kid line, yourself and Pears and Dustin Penner. You guys as the kid line. That was a nice, smooth transition. You want to walk us through year 2 for you guys in the NHL? Why don't you do that for our audience?
Yeah, the year 2 was, that was, to back up a step. We went to the conference finals my first year. Where I learned a lot. I got to participate in the NHL playoffs for the first time, go deep into the playoffs, understand what it took to compete at that level and how much different the game was. Went into that summer with a plan. We went in, I had to work, I had to get bigger, stronger to play the game that I wanted to play. And then, us trading for Chris Pronger in the offseason was kind of like this big, like, okay, we're going for this thing.
It was like a monster, a big deal, psychological lift. It was huge.
Yeah, it was huge. It just sent the message up and down our organization that we were going for the Stanley Cup. And so right from training camp, it was like, we didn't mess around. There wasn't a million people at training camp. We got down to our team fairly quickly, and just went with the attitude that, we were going to win right away, and started that season. And we kind of just went through the whole year with that same mentality.
You were still just a kid though, man. You didn't even turn 22 until the playoffs, right?
I was enjoying the heck of it. Let me tell you.
No kidding.
It was a blast. And the nice part was, again, I wasn't a lone 20-year-old, or 21-year-old. We got to go through it together, which was cool. Me and Pears even Penner, Chris Kunitz was, wow. Cooney was the old man, but we thought of him as a young
your
guy.
group he was.
Yeah. And, but yeah, we all got to go through it together, which was really cool. I mean, I remember even at a rookie party the year before, we had 7 rookies, I think, on that team.
Yeah.
And,
but
we went
you
to
also
conference
had Timo
final together.
Solani and Scott Niedermeyer. Don't make it sound like you were the all kids team that won the cup.
No, we definitely weren't. But we had a great mixture, which was awesome because our young players got to develop and not have the weight of the world on our shoulders. We got to just play. Obviously having 2 of the top 3 defensemen in the league is a nice treat to have on the back end to kind of bail you out when you make mistakes.
That's pretty cool. Do you want to talk about Corey Perry's weird pregame rituals? Can you share that with our audience?
Oh, jeez. I don't know. How much time do you have?
Hey, it's your stage, brother. It's the beauty of a podcast. You get to share your stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Perez has got a lot going on. I don't even know where he's at anymore. There was always different things. Perez ran the whole warm-up. If anyone ever watches warm-up, you'll see that nobody does anything except what Perry wants to do at that point. The whole warm-up stops. Everyone stands around and he shoots pucks a certain way. And there was always stuff like that. He taps doorways. He tapes a stick at a certain time. And it's pretty crazy, all the stuff he does. I don't even know how he remembers it all.
But it works, man. And then
he's still playing.
Yeah, and then you get to parade the Stanley Cup around the ice with your buddy. I think you had just turned 22 at that point. What was that like for you? Like, I mean, did you start to think, holy crap, the NHL is actually way easier than I thought it was?
What a league, hey? It's just easy. No, I you know what? I think at the time, being as young as we were, we just enjoyed it, which was great. There wasn't much that went into it. Got to, I finished the last game on the ice with pairs, got to be the first ones to grab Jiggy. And I think I just remember thinking all the emotion that those other guys had into it. The tears that Tamo and those guys have been working so long to get it. I remember really taking that in and enjoying that and how much that it meant to those guys. Because I don't want to say it meant less to us, but at the time we were more just rolling with it and celebrating like we normally would when you win. They were, it was a heartfelt thing that they'd been trying to get for a long time.
Yeah. In conversation with Ryan Getzlaf, Stanley Cup champion with the Anaheim Ducks, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. This is the 7-11 Overtime podcast. I'm your host, Gino Retta. And I guess it wasn't that long after that the team said, okay, now guys are aging out. They're moving on. We need to know where we're looking for leadership. And I think it was just maybe 3 years later, was it 2010, where they gave you the C? What was that like for you?
Yeah, that was, it was kind of natural for me. I didn't take too much out of it. It didn't put any extra pressure on me. I had to deal with a couple other things, obviously off the ice.
Yeah.
But again, at that time, I still had a great support group around me. I had Saku Koivu in the locker room at that time. I remember we had a team vote and it was really close between me and Saku. I can't remember what the numbers were, but they were definitely close. And I remember Saku, and Randy sat in an office and Saku said, no, he said, give it to Getz for sure. He's like, I'm here to support him. I will support you any way you need. And that felt really good because he's obviously been a captain of the league, been through a lot of different things. And so I always felt like I had the support of the locker room.
And you get to tell guys in the room that Saku was on your side and said that, yeah, this is what we need to do.
Yeah, it was great. He couldn't have handled it anymore like a professional. And I think that the guys really responded to that. In those first couple of years were able to support me in any way that, things went array.
Yeah. I want to ask you about something which has really always impressed me about you. And it's one of these things that doesn't get, we're not doing hits on this and we're not having conversations about this in the media, but it really kind of says, I think, a lot about you and a lot of stuff that goes on. Your relationship with Troy Terry. This is a kid that when he came into the league, there are some tough transitions you've got to make when you step into this league. Not only physically, like you were talking about, had to go back and put some beef on the off season, but mentally too. There's some stuff there. Tell me about your relationship with Troy Terry and how you became a mentor to him and other guys around the room, but I think in particular with him.
Yeah, at Tears, we always we hit it off a little bit. It's funny because Tears is he's almost like Perry was when he was kind of quiet to some extent.
Yeah.
Had a quiet confidence about him. He went through college and stuff where he was the guy, I think, and but he always is a kid that kind of made fun of himself and liked to be the butt of the joke, and it kind of kept him involved. So, but he always was very appreciative, and that was one thing that I always liked when he started. He asked questions, he picked brains, and he wasn't too ashamed to admit that he didn't know everything. And so I think at that point, me and him had a great relationship building, and the fact that he was always kind of bouncing things off me, trying to figure things out. And I always kind of had a soft spot for him because I knew how talented he was. When we first saw him, in camp and stuff, it was incredible, the talent that he had, and it was just about owning on all the other things of the game, the aspects that are going to be exposed when it comes to a pro game as opposed to junior. So we built that relationship, and then I always tried to be there for anybody that needed it or wanted it. And that was.
But you also knew how to handle the kid, though, which I think is really cool. He likes to tell a story, and this is his story that he put this out there about the great ping pong challenge, where you were chirping him about his car. And that became the bet. Tell us that story.
Yeah, he lost that car that day.
Tell our audience, because our audience doesn't know the story. You tell the audience.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was during the COVID season, I think. I can't remember where we were. Yeah, it was during the COVID season. I think we might have been in Denver, even his hometown. And during the COVID season, the hotels would set up these rooms for us because we couldn't go anywhere. So we had ping pong tables, and Terrence wasn't a very good ping pong player. And
there's a chirping. He's not even here to hear you. You're chirping.
Yeah, well, he knows though. It's not really news. And we bet on his car because I always made fun of him because he had this bright blue BMW car that looked like his wife should drive it. And so we bet on it, and I ended up beating him. And I told him I was going to take the car home, and it was going to be a playhouse for my chickens.
Because you have a chicken coop in your backyard.
I have a chicken coop,
just to clarify.
And and then trustee Shattenkirk came back and won it back for him. Shaddy stepped in, and Shaddy's a really good ping pong player because I'm actually not that good either, but I was just better than Terry.
So he temporarily lost the car to an appliance in your chicken
I had that
coop.
pink slip for a little bit.
How do your neighbors feel about the fact you have chicken? Like, how many chickens? I know you got the chicken coop because your wife wants organic eggs. I get that. I just can't imagine I'm trying to picture what your house looks like with a chicken coop in the backyard. Your neighbor's like, what the hell, dude? Spend the $5, buy a dozen eggs.
Well, I don't have a ton of neighbors. I have 5 acres here in California. Okay. So my neighbor's not exactly right next door, but no, we have chickens. And we have mini goats now too. So they got their own.
I didn't realize there were mini goats. What is it? What is a mini goat? I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah, they're called pygmy goats. They're just little guys. They're awesome.
Do they roam in your house or what?
Each other. They run around and headbutt each other.
Do you take bets? Do you spray paint the goat and say, I got the red one, you get the blue one, see who wins in the headbutting category thing, or no?
They do headbutt me too. They're great. Perfect. They love their mom. Paige actually walks, and we went for a walk the other day. It's probably on her social media that.
Dude, you're walking goats. 12 months out of the NHL, and you're walking goats.
Believe it. Find things to do.
That's hilarious. That's freaking hilarious. I want to take you back to 2005. I'm working the World Juniors back then. One of the highlights of my career. My own personal opinion, and I think of opinion of a lot of guys, probably the greatest Canadian junior team ever collected. Just for background for our audience, that was the year of the lockout. So, every year we go through the debate, which NHL teams are going to release which guys. Well, all of a sudden, all of you guys are available. Even the junior eligible guys. And I think Sid was he was still 17, right? He was an underager back then. He wasn't even drafted. Yeah, he was still 17. What do you remember about that? Apart from the fact that it was really, really freaking cold, as cold as I've been in my life.
It was miserable. You're right. Oh, it was freezing. No, I remember, that was kind of the same. It's funny how things happen, but I remember that almost the same as after my first year. And we went into the summer with the mentality that we were going to win. The year before, if you rewind, we lost in the finals to the Americans in Finland.
Yep.
And I remember coming into the camp in the summer for the World Junior team, and it was like, okay, this is it. We're building this team, and we only have one mission. I remember at the camp in this, like right before the tournament, Sutter like basically split up the groups and was like, these guys aren't playing today. The rest of you guys are fighting for spots. I don't care if you're on the team last year. And like he said,
that's not like Sutter
right
at all, eh?
No, he's very subtle usually. But that was kind of the mentality. And then we went into that tournament with just this, well, we had a juggernaut of a team. And we kind of knew it in the locker room, but we also went in with that attitude and that swagger that we were just going to go through this tournament. So it was a lot of fun. That was a great tournament to be part of. First time probably playing on that big a stage, being in Grand Forks with, the whole country kind of behind you, and they showed out when they were there too.
It was nuts. I mean, we started with you guys. I think we were in Winnipeg for a little while, and then did the drive down to Grand Forks. And as we were driving down, you're thinking in your head, "Oh, we're going south. It's going to get warmed up a bit." No way, man. It was freaking cold.
No, it didn't get warmed up. No,
it was cold. Definitely. I don't know if you know this or not, but myself, Bob McKenzie, and I don't remember who else was on our panel. Our panel was in the concourse in Grand Forks. So we were surrounded by people. It was nuts because the reason I tell the story is because there were so many Canadians down there. We were in the US, but you had to know that a biggest chunk of the audience there, the biggest chunk of the crowd was Canadian. Did you feel like the home team there?
Oh yeah. I mean, every game was a home game for us there. The facility was awesome. It was, and then the building, every game we played in was completely sold out of Canadian fans. And it was fun too, as I had lots of buddies that drove down. We had a great crowd, great amount of people that were there supporting us. So yeah, it definitely felt like we were in Canada every game day. And
it wasn't close, man. Was it 41-7? You guys outscored the opponents. And I think in the gold medal game against Russia, poor Alexander Ovechkin. I don't think anybody ever wanted to say poor Ovi, but at that point, it was like, I remember him walking down the hall at one point, the game wasn't even over yet. He was already in tears because he knew they were so vastly outmatched. You had Crosby, yourself, Phaneuf, Shea Weber, Jeff Carter. I mean, the frickin' roster was unbelievable.
Even Bergie came down and played.
Yeah, Bergeron. He led the scoring. He led the team. I think you were number 2, right? You and Bergie were number 1 and 2 in scoring.
I think so. Something like that. I'm not sure.
It was crazy. It was a crazy event. So, I mean, I think 9 guys who played in that team went on to win the cup, including yourself. 7 of you guys went on to represent Canada at the Olympic Games to win gold.
Yeah, that was a cool thing when we were in that locker room. And to look back at how many of us were in that locker room in the World Juniors was very fun.
Let's talk about Vancouver. Again, one of my career highlights. I didn't realize this, Getz. I didn't realize so many of your career highlights also.
Yeah, we were just
I got to be
together.
A part of. No, so it's not just you and Perry. It's you, Perry, and me as well. That's what was Vancouver like for you? I know for us it was insane because we walked everywhere. Everything was close. We didn't get to see any of the skiing events. We were just covering the hockey, but we got to walk to all the practices, the games, and I mean, being in Canada in 2010 for Vancouver, it was insane for us. What was it like for you guys?
Us, it was cool. I mean, that tournament was a little bit weird for me. I had a high ankle sprain 2.5 weeks before the tournament. Everything was kind of up in the air on whether I was going to be able to play. I spent most of the tournament, kind of nursing that ankle, trying to figure out how I could get ready for the next game. So I was doing a lot of that.
You still put up the points, man. You had 7 points in 7 games, so it's not like you weren't contributing.
No. The doctors and everybody kind of took care of me, and it was more leading up to it. The night before the tournament, I was going to say
in the tournament you look good.
Yeah, thank you. But I didn't practice a whole lot during the tournament. I didn't, do a whole lot the night before, or actually the morning of. We played in Edmonton the night before, flew to Vancouver, and I remember at 6 a.m. I had to go into a meeting with all the coaches, all the management. I had to jump up and down on my ankle to prove to them that I was okay.
No way.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy thing. And it's funny. I remember going through it, and we were sitting in there, and finally Babcock said, he goes, guys, what are we doing here? He's like, Getz, are you going to play? And I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, let's go. And so he finally settled the argument. And, I'm sure they still talked about it after that. Management probably had the final say, but yeah, it was a pretty crazy thing. And then, being in Canada, I had so many family there. We dealt with, it wasn't the true Olympic experience, and the fact that, we were in the village, but then I'd stay with my family. Yeah, we had our own area, but then we'd still go out to restaurants and stuff. We'd have team meals at restaurants. So it almost felt like an NHL, road trip for some extent. But what a cool time to go through and experience in that tournament, the ups and downs of it all. And we didn't have the same experience that we had the World Juniors, where we just kind of ran through it. We had some bumps along the way. Even in the final game, it came down to, I mean, there's no better script you could have written for a Canadian fan or player. We just really enjoyed and took that all in.
I've spoken to a number of guys that were on that team in their recollection at the end of the game, and almost without fail, everybody says, once we got to overtime, we all knew exactly what was going to happen. We knew we were going to win, and we knew it was going to be Sid.
I was going to say,
is that a consensus from everybody, or is that just like after the fact, guys are just saying, well, sure, we knew it was going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody knew Sid was going to score, but it was fitting, definitely. Those are the kinds of things that you saw follow him around his whole life. So, we were just glad he was on our side, obviously. But I think we definitely did have a calming confidence going into that overtime. Obviously overtime can go anyway, but I think that after they scored late, we went into the locker room, had enough leadership around that we just kind of relaxed. Everybody took a breath and got ready for the job at hand.
You mentioned quirky guys. Paris is a bit of a quirky guy. I'm not sure there's anybody more quirky on that particular team than Drew Doughty.
Oh.
Was it true? Was he really late for the gold medal game?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know, but that
sounds
he just
kind of rumbled in late.
That definitely sounds like something Dewey would do. He was late for a lot of things, and just kind of
almost missed the plane coming home from Sochi.
He definitely almost missed the plane coming home. We had to go find him. And I remember he came to the bus from Sochi, and he didn't even have his passport, his wallet, his bags, nothing. He just came to the bus, and we were like, this isn't Canada, bud. You're not getting out of here without this stuff. So we had to go scrounge that stuff up too and make sure he got home.
That's hilarious. Great conversation with Ryan Getzlaf, Stanley Cup champion, the first in franchise history with the Anaheim Ducks back in 2007, two-time Olympic gold medalist, as we were just mentioning, world junior champion as well. This is the 7-11 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Gino Reda. All of this from a Regina boy who was there a point where the family tried to say, you're in Regina, home of the Riders. You should be playing football. You actually grew up playing tailback, right? You were a tailback in football.
Yeah.
Can you believe that you came from those humble beginnings to what you were able to accomplish ultimately?
Yeah, it is crazy to look back on everything. I look back obviously as a father now at, what my parents did, what they went through, and try and use a lot of that in my own life now with my kids. The one thing that my family was great about is our family never pushed us like that was the only path. Pardon me. My brother went on to have a great career in the CFL, played for the Riders. So maybe they put their eggs in that basket. I don't know, but
he's the boy we're really proud of.
At least one of us made the family proud, No, but our parents pushed us to the extent that we had to show up. We had to show up for our teammates all the time. Whether it was practice at 7 a.m. or the games on the weekends or whatever it was, when we signed up to play something, didn't matter if it was hockey, football, baseball, whatever it was.
You were a pretty good baseball player too, right?
That we had to show up. I did. I played baseball. I love baseball. I still love baseball.
You went to nationals with a tournament team, didn't you? Didn't you go to a nationals tournament?
Yeah, we went to Prince Edward Island for nationals in Pee Wee. very cool experience. Got to go. That was my first time ever with a billet family. They shipped us off, and my family was obviously there, but we stayed with the billet family and stuff the whole time, which was very cool.
That is cool. You mentioned your
Yeah.
brother. We can't not mention your brother.
No.
10 years. Did he play for the Green Riders for 10 years for Saskatchewan? I know he played in the
Yeah, he
league
played for the
10 or
Riders, I
12.
think, for 10, and
Yeah.
played a couple more in Edmonton.
You only got
So,
one
yeah.
Stanley Cup. He got 2 Grey Cups.
Yes,
and
sir.
he's in Regina, which is the mecca of football. No offense. So Chris and Ryan Getzlaf walking down the street in downtown Regina. Who gets more accolades, more recognition between the two of you?
Oh, him for sure. He's a legend there. He deserves it. He won at home. That's a tough thing to do when you're sitting in Saskatchewan. That's you got to play through that bitter cold we keep talking about.
No kidding. Your retirement. So now it's early April last year. You're going to make the announcement, and when we heard you're going to speak, were you surprised by who was actually there? Because I heard that maybe you didn't know who was going to be there as you're making. Walk us through what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, I don't. That was it was weird. The whole thing. If we back up a little step, the whole thing was really uncomfortable for me. I don't like as much as I'm on TV and do all the other stuff. I don't love the attention on myself. I don't like that part of it. I never have. So, I went through this with our PR guy 1,000 times. On all the stuff that he wanted to do, and I had to pull him back a whole bunch of times because I was like, Gilly, I don't want this. So we were waiting a long time to actually make the announcement. Like I said, I didn't really want the farewell tour, but Gilly, kind of convinced me that we needed to do something in order to just include our fans, and he orchestrated kind of the whole thing. And then, so that press conference, me being naive, he was like, hey, I want you to talk to the press. We're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So me being naive, I was thinking I was just going up to talk to the press. I'd done that 1,000 times. And then things started to be a little bit weird because my teammates were kind of clearing out of the locker room and like fast and going up, and I didn't know they were going upstairs. But anyway, so then we went upstairs, and I had no idea my family, past teammates, anyone was going to be there. So that was a big shock for me.
It was pretty special, man. It was pretty special.
It was very cool.
It was pretty
very
special
cool for me to be able to experience that with them, which was awesome.
Yeah. And then the actual final game, last April 24th. Do you remember much of that?
I do remember, for the most part, just enjoying the building again. I think, throughout my career, we had, I'm going to say first 10 years of my career, we had a winning team every year. We went to the playoffs. We went deep in the playoffs many times. I've seen that building rocking, and the last couple of years of my career were more of a rebuild, and the building kind of, displays that without even trying to. So I really wasn't sure what it was going to be like, and I couldn't have been more pleased and appreciative of how many people showed up. It was a very, very humbling experience to see how many people I was able to touch the whole time I was here.
You're still young. Are you even 37 yet? Are you?
No.
You lost track yourself?
Maybe I am. No, I think I am 37. Yeah.
So that's good. At least I don't have to know it if you don't know it. That gives me some permission.
You don't have to, for sure. Yeah.
So there's still a lot of time. I mean, I know you want to catch up on some time with your family. You got 4 kids, and you got to catch up some time with them, and you got to clean the chicken crap out of your backyard because they don't clean up after themselves.
They don't, unfortunately.
What do you want to do? What do you want to do?
I've been kind of going through that steps. I'm not someone who can just, sit. I still feel like I have a lot to offer in the aspect of the game. I learned a lot over my career. I was able to deal with different people throughout my career, which not everyone has. Not everyone's gone through that transition where I started with kind of the old school mentality, the old school guys, and now dealing with, the Troy Terrys and Zegrases and those kids that came in, was like a totally different experience. So I would like to, possibly get into management at some level, trying to help in that any way that I can there.
We look forward to, man. And I look forward to. There's no Hockey Hall of Fame jinx, so don't worry about that. It's not like saying shutout. And then, over 1,000 points in your career, Stanley Cup, World Cup gold, World Junior gold. The stuff you accomplished. I look forward to being able to welcome you. One of the great joys of my career is I get to be there on the red carpet to welcome you guys into the Hall of Fame, and I'm looking forward to that, man. It's been great following your career and watching you. You're a real gentleman in the game. I know you don't like talking about yourself, so the fact that I just asked you to do that for the last half hour is awesome.
Appreciate that.
I really appreciate your time, man. And I'm so glad for you. You look like you're happy. You look like you're enjoying retirement. You're content in it, and you're not having any regrets. You're feeling good about things right now?
I am. Like I said, I would like to be a little bit more involved in the game still. There's plenty of time for that, obviously, coming up. But overall, I'm very pleased, very happy to be a dad right now and drive my kids around. I'm an unpaid Uber driver when school ends, so it's pretty cool to be part of the things that I've missed and not have to miss recitals or I get to coach baseball now with my son and really enjoy that.
Perfect. Ryan, great catching up with you, my friend. I'm glad you're doing so well. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks for having me, man.
Stanley Cup champion, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, World Cup gold, World Junior gold, and top 100 scorer of all time in NHL history, Ryan Getzlaf. The Overtime Podcast is proudly presented by 7-Eleven. Before leaving the rink, order your favorite Slurpee, fresh 100% premium Arabica coffee, hot from the oven, pizza and wings, pint of ice cream, or even a carton of milk, eggs, and a loaf of bread from the 7 Now app. And Team 7-Eleven will have your order ready for pickup 24/7. Hey, if you missed any parts of the show, don't worry. Visit our website at theovertimepodcast.ca, where you can both listen and subscribe to future shows. 7-Eleven's Overtime Podcast can be found on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, iTunes Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. Until next week, I'm Gino Reda saying so long, hockey fans, and thanks for joining us on the 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast.